you know. And with that, everybody, I want to welcome everybody to Crashing Game Night. My name is Matt Durio, your host, as always. Tonight, or rather today, God, we're doing this during the day. We know we're
That's
doing
right.
this tonight. We originally scheduled this interview when our guest, the voice of Cait Sith in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Paul Tinto, was going to be over in Glasgow, where he lives. But he is coming to you from, wondrous LA. So we
LA,
could have done
baby.
it tonight, but you know what? Things work out as they work out. And you know what? Do it during the day. And joined by my partner in crime, has been here since the very, very beginning. The one, Gerard Barrera.
What's up, all my nerds? How's it going? Yes, we got a great guest today, Paul. So excited, keeping the Final Fantasy family alive and well. We're happy to add you to it, and we can't wait to get to know you, bud.
Oh yeah.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, it was. I listened to an interview where you'd said you'd set a goal for getting everyone from Final Fantasy on. So
Trying.
I'm glad because I know I'm glad.
I mean,
I'd be added to the list.
It awesome. started with John.
Which then, actually, that's a great story because we essentially met John, kind of how we met each other. But putting it together, it's actually how all of us met and kind of became friends.
Yep.
Matt and I and our other co-host Theo and other co-host Jason, we all went to E3. Yeah. We all met. We met in a line for Disney Infinity. And the funny thing is, we met John while waiting for the tutorial in the demo at Final Fantasy Remake. And he was
in 2019. Yeah,
it was the one that was like, hey,
it just so happened to be we walked in and they're like, hey, by the way, here's the voice of Barrett, John Eric Bentley.
Yeah.
And him and his son were there. So he happened to be just walking around and he walked over to me. We struck up a conversation. We were talking about, the mechanics of 7, how we were liking it.
I was still playing the demo and when I saw you guys talking.
And he knew kind of like I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan because I immediately was like, this feels like Final Fantasy 13 to me in a lot of the battle mechanics. And it just became from there. And we started, we exchanged phone numbers and started texting and then got him on. And then Austin was the second. And then it just snowballed into Vic and Mallory and Bree and Gideon and
that you started your bar incredibly high. Like I can't think of a better gateway.
And that's how lucky we got.
I've met. But wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to say that Final Fantasy doesn't mean something to us and just the podcast, but in general, just like I've been playing Final Fantasy since Super Nintendo days. Back when
we had a long-standing bet that I ended up losing that I had to do a very regretful dance that same E3.
We made him do the Spider-Man dance from Spider-Man 3 in front of the Square Enix booth because he didn't think we were getting a demo, much less a date for Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Because at that point, it was so long since we saw the very first announcement of 7, which was what, 7 or 8 years prior.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, I didn't want to get my hopes up, so I was the jaded one. And luckily we got the great news. We were getting that demo. We got a release date, and I was happy and sad that I was wrong. But
Paul, I will go get the link for the video off of our YouTube channel, and I will send it to you so you can watch him having to make a fool of himself. But anyway, so Paul is like, how are you doing? I mean, this has been a little bit of a whirlwind for you since it came out.
Yeah.
And I mean, you got to go to KubaCon, be a guest there. And
it's been surreal. And I mean, it's funny, like talking about your experience of even hearing about the release or hearing about the remake and everything from like 8 years ago. My experience of it, not that I didn't play a PlayStation back when I was a kid, but Final Fantasy wasn't one of the ones for me. I'd heard of the game, but it's been a steep learning curve, sort of like jumping into this world head first over the last 2 years. I mean, an incredible experience. The family and the community has been absolutely amazing. And from working with the team to then having the experience of being introduced.
Look who's fashionably late. The one applying for a job for janitor at Square Enix.
Hey, there he is.
So that's been a running joke too. Like Jason is as much of a Square Enix
Oh,
fan
he's
as
a
I
huge
am.
Square Enix fan.
Oh,
Actually,
really?
funny thing is, when E3 was going on, if he wasn't or with us, we knew exactly where he was. He was
He
at a
was
Square Enix booth, running demos, trying to get the shirt,
Yep.
talking to whoever he could.
So, but don't feel bad, right, Paul, about not playing the original, right? Because that is a confession that Vic had.
What's up, J Bone?
Oh,
That
really?
taking on Sung, he had never played the original game, so he had no frame of reference. So I'm assuming for some of that cast, it's probably the same thing, right? They'd never played Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Let me give the proper intro for him. He's fashionably late,
Hey, it's okay.
but
It's my fault.
he's joining our maitre d' services, the man with the couch, the man, the myth, the legend, Jason Baladio.
How's it going, guys?
What's up,
I am
baby?
late. I'm sorry. It's okay. You know, the couch had to get redelivered, you know, because we are screaming all the way in Ireland. So, you know, Scotland, I'm
No,
sorry.
so Jason, we were just
Actually,
talking
we're
about
in
he's sitting in
LA.
LA right now.
Oh my goodness. So I sent the couch out for no reason.
Story's blowing, man.
So let's give everybody a chance to get to know you though, Paul, right? Because
Yeah.
you know, like you said, when you look at like even your IMDb, right, you've done pretty much just film, you know, essentially TV and movie, right? And you haven't really done voice acting. So
yeah. As far as, I mean, I started, what did I start? I mean, yeah, actually my first two jobs out of drama school were TV and film. So for the last 10 years, it's been a mix of TV, film and theater. But voiceover was something I only got into, it was around 2020. It was not, or 2019. I got my first voiceover agent in 2019, and then didn't land my first voice gig until just before the pandemic. But that was doing a commercial, and from then I'd just been doing commercials for the last up until this came along in 2020. What was that? 2020 two for me. Yeah, the end of 2022. And I mean, getting into voice acting was something that I completely kind of stumbled into. I'd had friends that had voiceover agents, and they'd said, "Mate, you should get involved, you know, or to at least try." And so I thought, all right, I got a demo reel together. I got a gaming reel put together, having no experience of doing sort of
Nice.
voice and doing games from.
I was actually wondering how you fell into it, or how you transitioned to it. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so my first agent, my first voiceover agent, they got me one job at the end, but we were parting ways by the end of it. And I was moving out of London and moving back up to Scotland after about 10 years in London. A friend of mine put me in touch with a voiceover agent up in Scotland who was an actor themselves, and there was nothing there in Scotland in terms of voiceover agencies. And so she thought, I'm just going to start one up. And
oh wow.
And she was,
nice.
I mean, she's incredible. My agent, she hustled till the cows come home, and she built this thing up from nothing. And funnily enough, when I sent her my stuff, she said, to be honest, I wasn't thinking of taking anyone else on, but your gaming reel kind of sort of like piqued my interest a little bit. And like, even if I look back at some of the games on that reel now, I wouldn't even know where they're from. I think Last of Us is in there, but I had no idea what I'm
sweet.
My American voice for, you know, I chose Last of Us, I think, or they would have been someone else sending me like copy of stuff like, let's try this one. But then, so I was with that agent doing adverts for 2 years, and then out of nowhere, and it wasn't specifically me that Square Enix came to, my agent just sent one out to all the guys and saying, hey, one for the guys here, bit of a strange one, but if you're interested, put something down. And it was for Final Fantasy, it was for Cait Sith, and they did say Final Fantasy on the email, so I know that some people's experience of it, they hadn't had that, like it was a code name or whatever, and they just had to take a guess.
Or like a ghost script, the ghost sides that they were working with. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess though, at that point though, right, you had FF16 that was being made, which is set predominantly kind of like in England, you know, and and you had 7. So honestly, at that point, right, you could have been anyone in FF14 even too. So it couldn't,
Exactly, yeah.
you know.
I've met a few of the guys from I've met one of the guys from
Mhm.
16 and a few from 14 off the back of just being involved in the Final Fantasy
Mhm.
world now, and then suddenly realizing, oh wow, yeah, there's 2 quite predominantly UK based games out of this entire franchise, which have been doing them really, really well. But it was, yeah, to come back to your original question though, it's been sort of surreal from getting the job at the very, very end of 2022, starting recording at or no, what was it? What were we on? 2024, starting recording. Sorry, starting recording the end of start of 2022. So I found out I got the job at the end of 2021, recorded for a year and a quarter, and then this whole floodgate is just opened.
Well, but let's talk about prior to you doing voice acting, because I was looking at some of your credits, man. The crew that you've worked with, I am jealous.
Oh,
like
yeah.
seriously. Like you start off, I mean, your first listed gig on IMDb is First Light, but in 2018 you were part of King Lear.
Yeah.
With Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And Emma Thompson. I mean, Sir Anthony Hopkins. I mean, come on.
That was, yeah, that one in particular. It's funny you pull that one out, because that one in particular was the most surreal experience. I mean, Anthony Hopkins was one of the. There was a film that he did years ago called Shadowlands, which was one of the reasons that I sort of wanted to become like, I want to maybe act. And then when I got that call up saying it was the first audition I'd never had to, it was the first job I'd never had to audition for. You know, there was my agent called me up saying the casting director was wondering if you wanted to do this. It's just one line. It was a soldier. It's in King Lear with Anthony Hopkins, but your scene is going to be with Anthony Hopkins. I was like, I'm in.
Yes.
I'll say nothing. It doesn't matter. I'm in. And I've told this story to a few friends now. It was a surreal experience. The night before we filmed, I was filming for 3 days, and he's got this his last scene. He's got this big long monologue. I've got this one line in the middle of it. I'm like, what am I doing with a line here? Let's just cut it anyway. And the night before we filmed, I got this email through from production, script changes, and I'm like, here it comes. Here's when I find out that my line has been cut, because it should probably be cut and just let him act. And I look at the email, I look at the script, it's not there. It's just changed though. It looks further down, it's back. It's just they've moved the line. And I got to set the next day. I walked past Anthony Hopkins. He goes by Tony, and he said, "Good morning." I was like, "Morning, Tony." And he stopped me and he was just like, "Oh, I just wanted to ask you, was everything okay with the line changes?" And I'm like,
wow.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's grand. It's like whatever works for you. It's like totally. It's like, and he said, no, because we were working and things last night, and then I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, shit, I think I've cut that boy's line.
I mean,
that's so cool, dude. That's a professional, man. That's amazing.
I know it was so surreal. And I said, no, absolutely. I think it works better where it is. And he said, well, why don't we go in and look at it? And then he invited me into his trailer, and we sat and we worked my one line for about 10 minutes, and then just sat chatting for a half an hour about his career and stuff. I was like, am I alive? Am I dead?
I'm sitting here talking to Anthony Hopkins. Like,
like having a cup of coffee.
Dude.
Like, why not?
He's
friends.
I mean, for our listeners, right? I mean, for those that aren't movie aficionados like we are, right? Is Anthony Hopkins has been, I know for me, he's been part of my movie life for a very, very long time. You know, and just growing up as a kid watching movies, and he's one of those voices, Anthony Hopkins, just like Morgan Freeman, and like these guys are just legends. And to just be able to sit down,
what an
and
honor.
just
that's
talk
amazing.
to him is wow.
It was amazing. And the thing was, he talked to me a lot about his own career coming up, and how much anxiety he used to have as an actor, especially when he was working on stage. And I mean, this is a guy that has had famous career like at the National Theatre in London, and loads of amazing stage work before he went into film and TV. And he told me a story of this costume person once that, while fixing a button on his costume, said to him, "Nah, Shakespeare's not really for you, is it, dear boy?" and he said that crushed him, and it kept him sort of way down on him for years and years and years.
Wow.
And he said his own fear of, or his own anxiety of
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We lost Paul. It's okay. We'll get him back.
Yeah.
So Jason, how you doing?
We'll give him a minute.
Doing great, man. I mean, it's just been a wild ride already. So, hey, I'm glad to have Paul on. It's just crazy hearing his voice. Like I was just watching some of the clips because I haven't even stepped into Final Fantasy. Now that Run is back, we were able to just relax for a second, and now we're just like, okay, now we're about to head out. So it's just unbelievable. I'm ready. I'm ready to go through Final Fantasy. So it's gonna be
nice.
Fun. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
We'll get Paul back here in just a second, folks. Anyway, so I just want to kind of give it to. There's Paul. Paul's back.
There we are.
He's back. Anyways, there you are.
Uh-oh.
Gotcha. 2 seconds.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. So just let everyone know, guys, as we kind of go through everything, I just want to preface this. We are not going to be doing any spoilers talking about the game. Just want to reiterate that.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet.
Because Jason hasn't started. Jerry is just outside Calm in the open world, and I'm up. I'm in chapter 7. And
Slow it
I'm
down,
35.
homie.
I'm 35 hours in though, Jason.
Slow it down, homie.
Slow it
Slow
down.
it down.
I'm doing everything before moving on with the chapter. So, anyway, so we'll get Paul back here in just a second. It's all good. I mean, honestly, day and age, right? Technology is great when it's here and it's working.
Yep.
And
that's
then,
quite amazing. Like looking at the cast too. Florence Pugh, Emily Watson,
Emma Thompson.
Emma Thompson, Emily Watson was also in it. Jim Carter. My God, dude, Andrew Scott.
Yeah, it's
that was a big cast.
It was.
A good cast.
And then one of the other movies we'll touch on when he gets back, though, that I want to talk to him about is 1917.
Crazy.
With Colin Firth, and it's directed by Sam Mendes, who directed Skyfall, Spectre, American Beauty, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and Road to Perdition.
Yeah.
So those are the big highlights on that. So Jason, I got to ask you though, how hard has it been fighting that urge to crack open?
A little bit hard. It's also a lot of stuff's been going on right now, so it's just like it's a little bit of my body is ready, but my mind is not kind of feel, so I'm like, it's okay. But once I crack it open, once we get it installed, once we get the opening sequence, I'm gonna be like, game on. That's it. I'm gonna call off of work and be like, you know what? I got a Final Fantasy up.
Nice.
But it's been good, and again, I'm just when it's the right time, it's gonna be the right time.
And we've got Paul back. He's now Anna. He's now Anna.
I'm now Anna. I'm on my wife's laptop.
That is okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're perfectly fine.
So sorry about that, guys.
No, it happens.
Yeah, okay, totally happens.
Paul, let me give you a story, okay? A couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure if you listened to this episode. Jerry was messing around with his gear. And he sounded like he was one of the chipmunks. And we let it go for a little while. Just
they stopped it instantly. They were like, "Oh, you need to fix your mic." I'm stone faced, like
you're
I've known Jerry for over 10 years. So I'm just stone faced. No, Jerry, dude, your mic is fine. Just like you leave it alone. You're good. You're
because Jason's so stone faced, I'm like, okay, so I'm good. Like,
yeah, I'm like, yeah, you're good, man. Don't worry about it.
Oh, dude, like your voice is like, Okay, all right. Who's screwing with me?
Matt and Theo are like, no, it's still a little, and I'm like, dude, just it's fine, leave it alone. They're just messing with you.
Hold on, and then when he fixed it, we messed with him.
Yeah.
Because it was such a
It's all good.
I totally saw the mistake, and I was like, wait a minute.
Well,
it was
technology, we love
Yeah.
it, we hate it, you know, but it's
I work in
good.
IT as a day job, so
all good.
but no, so you were talking about Sir Anthony Hopkins and
Yes.
about Shakespeare and that it hit him.
Yeah. So yeah, he told me this. He told me that story, which I'll never forget. That someone had said that, you know, told him Shakespeare was never going to be for him, and commenting that, you know, he didn't do it particularly well. And he said that when he went into rehearsal rooms, he used to learn not just his own lines but everyone else's lines, because he was so sort of, his own anxiety and fear of not being there was what sort of led him to sort of just approach his work that way. But so yeah, we chatted for ages, and it was a real lesson for me, not just in if anything else, a real lesson for me in me just taking the job because in so many other situations, someone might say, "Oh, it's just one line." Like, nah, you don't want to be doing one line. Look what you just did. You've just done a TV series where you were a supporting lead or whatever. And so, but you don't need to do something that's one line. And then that experience of taking on a job that was one line was probably one of the most memorable and influential experiences of my entire life.
And then the other highlight I want to point out was 1917, right? With Colin Firth. And like I was pointing out, these guys, it was directed by Shawn Mendes, who did Skyfall and Spectre on the Bond side. And he directed American Beauty, which won the Academy Award, and Road to Perdition.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, right, that trio, Emma Thompson, Colin Firth, and Anthony Hopkins, that's pretty much like the Mount Rushmore of British actors.
It does feel like that sometimes when you're working within, even in King Lear alone, you had, you know, there was so many actors there on that table.
Oh, that cast was ridiculous too.
What am I doing here? So this is surreal. And then on 1917, again, another example where, I mean, if you try to find me in that, it's sort of blink and you miss me territory. But you know, I'm one of many soldiers sitting in a trench waiting for a scene to happen. But an incredible experience working with Sam Mendes, who I don't know if it's because of his experience in theatre or just because of the way he is, but the detail he would spend on looking at everyone in that shot, you know, that frame, if there wasn't a story being told from any person in that frame, whether they're sitting the top right hand corner and look like a background artist, you know, my part in that was a fleeting moment where someone bumps into me, knocks into me, and then something else happens, and you know, I'm barely even in focus on it, but he's coming down from his video village camera suite all the way into this literal trench that they dug. They dug about kilometers worth of trench to shoot this stuff.
I was going to ask, like, how was the scale? Because when, you know, those movies are just feel so vast and big.
Yeah, and because they wanted to film it in such a way where they wanted to create the image of having like one continuous long shot, these scenes did last sort of, you had to have sort of space for the scene to move. And there's lots of those scenes where it is just traveling around a trench. And I remember sitting there, we were waiting for cloud cover or something. And if you imagine the way trenches are dug, they're kind of like zigzagged. It's not just like one up that you can look a tunnel. You have to kind of go around corners. And I remember at one point thought, well, I'll just peer around here and see what's going on. And I looked around a corner, and then just as far as the eye could see, I could just see loads of supporting artists just sitting there in World War I gear, smoking cigarettes, playing cards and stuff. I'm like, my God. It's like, you think that this thing is just contained within this one little thing that we were doing, and then I look around, there's an entire world going on that the scene is going to carry on to once they've passed me. The scene, it was incredible. The scale of the thing was amazing, and they were doing it all in location.
Oh,
so
that's
they
so
had
cool.
dug kilometers worth of trench.
Yeah.
The loads of supporting artists were sitting in, playing cards, smoking, chatting.
Man, just to be a part of like a production like that, because those don't come around very often. You know, you have Dunkirk, you have a Saving Private Ryan. You know, those are few and far between. And you know, when they're done like that, when they're done right like that and look beautiful, you know, it's got to make you feel good to be a part of something like that, because those don't come around a lot. Those
No,
type
they
of
don't.
movies.
They don't. And it has been, I mean, I've been lucky that there's been a couple of casting directors that have sort of had my back and have always sort of put me in front of people. And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, you're right. And just sort of being able to look back and sort of see your CV just building up with just experiences and projects that have gone down with some sort of legacy attached to them, you're like, wow. And Final Fantasy is another prime example of
Yeah.
that, talking about legacies. Like,
And especially, how did you feel kind of going to the conventions, and because the fans are loyal, and
Yeah.
how was the feeling of that, like, uproar of like the fandom and finally getting to see them at the conventions?
It was amazing, and I think my experience so far is that and people that had been in parts of 14 had said this. They said the community is so welcoming, and they really want to meet you, and they want to be able to celebrate your character and stuff. And so there is an amazing community there. And I that's what I experienced. People that were just
Awesome.
keen to talk to
Good.
you and welcoming you in, and having varying levels of some people that have been excited about Final Fantasy for so many different reasons as well.
Yep.
And it's been a part of people's lives for so many different reasons, whether their parents played it and now they're just coming into it having played, 14, 15, 16, and are now going back to 7 because of all the hype, or those that have got nostalgia for 7. There are so many different reasons. But interestingly, though, somebody did say to me, they said, what you'll be aware of in Final Fantasy VII fandom is that it's, out of the lot, it's probably the most divisive.
Yes.
And so they said, well, when you get onto social media and stuff, just be aware that there's a lot of collateral there within the Final Fantasy VII fandom, just because it means so much to so many people. And obviously then sort of Remake and Rebirth and whatever is inherently going to be divisive, because everyone's got their own baggage
I think
that they're coming to with it.
Yeah.
the best way to describe that fandom to some people is think about those fans that love the original Star Wars trilogy. Okay.
Yeah.
New Hope, Empire, and Return. And then the sequels. Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, right? It is divisive, right? And I think part of it though is when they were originally announcing Remake and they were going with the voice cast that we do have now, there was a lot of backlash from the community because they wanted the cast of Advent Children to be the voices in the game. And
that was a big thing.
Square went a completely different way. And honestly, I love both sets of actors. Like, both performances have been great. And I think they've put together an amazing cast for Remake and Rebirth. And I'm not just saying it because they are family, right? With John and Mallory and Austin and Vic and all them. And you guys are just the way you guys have brought these characters to life. And I'm a little bit farther than these guys, and I'm not going to say lines or anything, but just the way
lot farther.
These characters have been brought to life in Rebirth, especially. Like, there's been such an evolution to these characters that for me, I can't see them being played by anybody else than who's playing them. I've seen, I've heard the lines from Cait Sith just from catching videos like you have, right? Just here and there. And luckily I've been able to stay away from spoilers because I'm wanting to experience this game, on my own and the moments, and just, I can't picture, Paul, just the lines that I've heard. I can't picture anybody but you playing that role, right? Just the way you portray Cait Sith and have brought him to life. And I will say this, Final Fantasy VII is a very contentious group. Like, we've got several creators, that are friends of ours. Lesko, she's been playing Final Fantasy since FF1, and she's a massive collector. You've got, a buddy of ours, Soldier First Class. He left making content altogether because of how toxic some of the people within the FF7 community were, because he said one thing that they didn't agree with, and they basically went at him completely. And then there's another one. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention our buddy Drew, who runs Final Fantasy Weekly podcast. And him and his brother have played the Final Fantasies with his dad, since they were kids. Like, it's been such a big part of them. And to have what you guys are doing for a lot of people is huge, right? Just, and to your point right there, it is welcoming. A lot of us are just like, yeah, let's go. I want to see what you guys do. but it does mean a tremendous amount.
Yeah, it's because the fan base is so passionate. And I think it's because your guys, Square Enix did such a great job casting you guys. Because the whole, like Matt said, we really can't picture anyone doing these roles because you guys have brought so much depth and brought the characters so much to life. I want to say kind of revamping it for, this new console and like it's supposed to be for a new generation, and you guys are really representing that and bringing it kind of full circle. Like we have the performances from Advent Children, of course, but you guys really made it your own and really made this world like yeah, I mean, just so updated and so much fun to explore, and we can't wait for more.
Thank you very
Just
much.
more story. Yeah,
I mean, I'm delighted, and it's been, so far on the likes of social media, there's been some lovely people who've reached out in a really, really lovely way of sort of saying how much they've enjoyed Cait Sith's performance. Some people have come saying, I'm not going to lie, I was never a fan of Cait Sith before, but I've really sort of turned a corner on the back of that performance, which I'm like, wow. But I think and this was one of the things when I got the job, I deliberately didn't do too much of a deep dive into everything beforehand because I knew that I was going to come across loads and loads of varying opinions. But the one thing I did know, or eventually knew, that Cait Sith had always been quite a divisive character. And some people had loved him, some people had hated him. And you're like,
I was on the group that hated him in the original game.
Absolutely,
I love the guy.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, I'm not. I think, and weirdly, that ended up being freeing because you think it's impossible for me to sort of please everyone with this, and maybe it's impossible for the game itself to please everyone with this, and that's fine. So with that in mind, you sort of trusted the direction they wanted to go, and sort of went at it from there and kind of tried to, as I said, I deliberately stayed away from researching it too much, partly because he's a bizarre character, and the way he comes into the game is such that he doesn't have a similar backstory that lots of other characters do. And like, not to sort of give spoilers away or anything, but looking at his origin, so to speak, will only lead you thus far. And so with that in mind, when I was working with the translators and the director and the producers, they clearly were happy with the direction it was going in. So I thought, cool, I'm just going to sort of trust that this is the level and this is the direction we want to pitch it at, and go along with that.
When they told you were going to be playing Cait Sith, right? How did you feel when you finally figured out, oh, I'm playing a cat?
Well, the thing was, because I took the NDA really, really seriously, and again, I didn't look at it too much because they said, please don't say anything about this because there have been other actors that have played these characters before, and to be own emotional experience with it, we're asking not to shout from the rooftops about it. When I was sure, and again, the only thing I knew of, because thinking, okay, so I'm playing this fortune-telling robot cat. It's like, again, kind of freeing, because it's like, if you try to sort of like, I don't know, if you try to sort of think about that too much, you're going to hurt your head.
Yeah.
And even when I did sort of like speak to people that weren't gamers about it and said, I'm playing this robot cat, you're like, you what? But also, I didn't realize how much the character. I didn't realize at the time how much the character played through the entire story. The first block of recording I had was about 6 weeks long, and I just thought, maybe and out of that, let's say 10 days worth of recording, and I thought that was it. So I was thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be this small sort of supporting character.
Nope.
Nope. And suddenly, like 8 months later, I'm still recording this. This is when I eventually go to a cousin and say, I'm playing this part in Final Fantasy VII, and he's like, Rebirth, and I was like, yeah, it's which one? And I said, it's Cait Sith. He was like, fuck.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, are people going to know this character? He's like, yeah, man, everyone's going to know this character.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So, which again, though, I'm glad I didn't know that going into it, because I think I probably would have bricked it going into that first.
Or maybe added some pressure if you maybe overthought it, or.
And I would have dived down that thing of trying to please everyone, and I would have dropped the ball. and not gone with my instincts, because I would have been like, fuck this, oh man, the pressure's going to get too much. I didn't realize the weight that was carrying here to some extent.
That's I would have that probably
That's
same
totally
conversation.
understandable.
I would have
Yeah.
that same reaction if like I was sitting there, you told me, I would have been like, the
I'm
fuck?
yeah.
I mean,
but it wasn't as if, and that's the thing, I don't like say that as if to say that there wasn't work that hadn't gone into it, or that it wasn't being taken seriously. There was, every day in the studio we were talking a lot about the game, and I was learning about the game as we went. And so, and you're recording it all out of sequence anyway, so there's times when you're jumping between Gold Saucer to this land, to a Chocobo land, to wherever, and you are just kind of catching up, right, where are we now, where in the story are we? And you'd get the lines, you know, the director would tell you, okay, Barrett's just said this to you, and I'd learn the context as I went, and so it'd start to kind of form the world that way. And sometimes you get into really weird conversations, just like, okay, so how does a cat snore? You know, how are we? How's this cat sleeping? Is it in human sleeping? Is it in cat sleeping? And then other things, again, you're thinking how much agency does Cait Sith have at this point? Or, you know, a lot of the way we were discussing of how to play things is just because of because of his context in the game. So like I started to understand the story, or his part within the story, very, very well, which grew and grew and grew. All of the kind of the fan-based opinions of him, that's what I learned afterwards. You know?
So when you look at everything that you guys have done and what this has meant to people, right? When you go to a convention like KubaCon, which is, it's a Final Fantasy convention. That's what it, you know, that's what it's for. Did you have people that would tell you guys your story on like what the game meant to them?
Oh yeah. And you would have there were a few people there that were with that had their parents with them, or had a dad with them, and who had come to the game through their dad playing it. And so this, you can tell that this has just been a bonding experience for them for however many years, and this is something that they really, really hold as sort of like a father-daughter experience. And that there was a couple of those instances which I thought, wow, that's incredible. There were a couple of other people that were just like they've lived and breathed this for years, and you can't, weirdly, it's like you can't put a price on it. And it's lovely, and it's amazing to be part of, and you do feel the weight of responsibility, but they want to share that with you. And I got a letter from someone gave me a letter on that day to read later on, and it was to do with the mental health struggle that they'd gone through for years, and actually seeing themselves, finding themselves in the characters of Final Fantasy was the first experience they had of discovering emotions that were what she was feeling. And she's like, oh, I'm not alone in this. It's like I'm connected to someone here, and this was something that completely like gave her the confidence to actually sort of have a different outlook in life. And she found her own inner confidence through playing that game. And you're like, and that's huge. Like that's absolutely colossal to find someone, to find stories of people that have being able to build their confidence out through the interpretations and through seeing the journeys of these characters and what they find with them in themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because definitely with like it being almost a 30-year-old game, before we would always have to use our imagination and how like the characters talked, or how the dialect that a lot of them had, like were some of them more like mean sounding, or like what did everything sound like. But now that 30 years later, when you're talking about like how like fathers and their kids are now like playing this game, like yeah, I mean, Matt, definitely a living example of this, and just on our group, like he's played this before in the past, that 30 years ago, and to have it reborn, remade, and
Jason, come on. I mean, you're calling out the gray hair here, dude.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like you're the one with the kid. You're the one with the kid in our group. I'm sorry, like you're gonna be the dad forever for us.
Well,
But
funny story on that.
having that though, like 30 years ago,
Mhm.
with now 30 years later, having the new generation hear the
Yeah.
voices and know, like, understand, like, this is the same 90% of it's the same dialogue. Not a
Yeah.
lot has changed, but you now hear this voice where you're just like, oh man, like that's
Mhm.
what they sound like. That's where that's like, okay, now you get that emotion, that secondary like
I also I
response.
I mean,
Oh,
experienced
so
a similar
nice.
experience on
Yeah.
gaining a little confidence. I uh I originally started with Final Fantasy watching my brother play because he was the one that first started and he introduced me to him. And the biggest one that I got really influenced was when he was playing Seven. And I never really attempted to play RPGs because I thought they were a little too complicated. I stuck with action games and I didn't think I was going to be any good. And so I just never tried them. But I followed my brother because I loved the story and the characters, and I got so enamored with it. I said, screw it. Like, I'm just going to try it. So I just kind of got a boost to, you know, try something new. And that's when I fell in love with Final Fantasy. And my first one I played was Seven.
I mean, we do like being at that convention in particular, that Cubicon convention that
Mhm.
is there solely for Final Fantasy. You do see something where I think there's a lot of the people there that are at it. I believe that you're seeing the most free version of themselves because they've found a community and they've found a group
Yep.
that love the same
Yeah.
thing they do, and whether that's through cosplay or whether that's just talking about the story or the shared experiences they have for something that within the like it's got a colossal audience obviously, but it's you can still see it as niche within sort of the
Yeah.
wider
Yeah.
world. So it's a bizarre paradox in that sense. But it was amazing being there for that event in particular, where you think this is for a lot of people sort of a really kind of confidence building experience. You know,
Well, I think too, as you talk about like families introducing and stuff, like, so we joke around, all right, because I graduated high school in 97, May 97. Final Fantasy 7 came out
Wow.
September
aged
of
very well, man.
97 here in the States. So it has been a part of my life for 27 years, and it's interesting because my kids, I played RPGs and stuff, and my kids, they're 4 and 6 right now. I could be 7 this year.
Yeah.
Good Lord, where's time
Wow.
going?
Jesus.
Wow.
And they've never really taken to like watching RPGs all much, but Final Fantasy, they do. Like they're constantly coming in, checking the game. Like I'm at a section in the game where you can, choose your party. I'll just put it that way. And they'll be like, "Where's Cloud?" I'm like, dude, but like the other day, and I think this is where Final Fantasy can bridges the gap for generations, right? Is that my kids now are playing Smash Brothers on the Switch,
Right.
and my oldest boy is playing as Cloud and Sephiroth almost exclusively right now. Like,
God.
and he's loving every minute of it. And I think that's where it's like you have these characters, right? That
They're just so beloved. Yeah.
antagonist, protagonist, right? And they're so beloved, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe not Cait Sith to all of us, but in the original game, like I just him and Yuffie in the original game just annoyed me, and I just never really used them and gave them the time of day. But
Sure.
I think what I can't wait to get to the scenes with Cait Sith specifically is because of how they've evolved Yuffie to the point where you actually care about her as a character
Mhm.
now, and I think that's going to be the moment when we see Cait Sith for the first time. You're actually going to kind of care about him to an extent,
Yeah.
and see where the character goes.
I
You go
think
turn
you're
face,
right.
Matt. You go turn it. You go turn, man. You go turn.
To be honest,
I know it. I
when
know
I
it.
found out
Yeah.
when I found out that Yuffie was also a divisive character as well, or had be, I kind of I thought, oh, cool. There's someone else to sort of like carry this weight of of a character that some people are saying are coming around to or had different opinions on as well. But coming back to your earlier point of how your kids are finding it, I think part of that and what I've learned through doing Final Fantasy is just the story and the story structure and the characters that are created are just so incredibly universal, and like there's a reason its legacy has lasted because the story
Yeah.
is so good. And you can sort of pick the story apart and look at it in depth for hours and hours and hours, for days and days and days. You can have your own interpretation of it, but the world is so rich. And I think I feel like that's the reason it's lasted, because the characters are universal, the story's so good that it can be transgenerational. In fact, there's a guy, someone who tweeted you today, actually, this a friend of mine who I met through KupaCon, and MJ Gallagher.
Oh yeah,
listening, I don't know, but
I have his book down on the shelf.
Yes, yeah. I'm listening. Which one do the Greek one or the Norse one?
I think it's the Greek one.
Yeah, I'm reading the Greek one as well.
Oh no, it's the Norse one.
Oh.
It is the Norse one.
Man, you're getting a good plug today.
Okay, we're gonna give him a plug on both books.
Look at that! Oh, look at that!
There it is. But
both books.
We love you, MJ.
We love you, MJ. But one of the things I'm taking away from this is that, you know, the stories, these amazing stories that have gone all the way back to sort of Greek, Norse mythology, they've been around for thousands and thousands of years and have lasted for a reason. And I think there's a reason why Final Fantasy seems to be doing the same, because it's drawing on a lot of the same stories and emotions and themes and ethoses. And therein lies an amazing story.
Yep. Yeah, MJ. Yeah, we just plugged your books.
You're welcome, man.
Both books too.
Anyway,
Same time.
so folks, kind of the books, if you couldn't really see them. So there's North myths that inspired Final Fantasy VII, and then there's Greek myths that inspired Final Fantasy VII.
Sweet.
Both by MJ Gallagher.
Hold those two books up again. Look at that.
Hello, look at that.
Get the screenshot. There you go. Get the screenshot.
You can get them on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. But no, it's MJ has put a lot of work into these books, because you can, as you're playing these games, right? They are bait. There's some root in Norse and Greek mythology. Case in point, one of the summons is Odin. It's like, it's but no, MJ's a great guy. Him and we'll keep in touch with each other and talk through like email and stuff on Twitter or whatever they want to call it these days. But
X.
But no, I think
give it to you.
But I think that's when you look at like just how much Final Fantasy VII means, right? You've got MJ was inspired to write 2 books. There's even they wrote, Kosuke Nojima wrote, On the Way to Smile, which was the link up to Advent Children. There's a book that's specifically just for Tifa and Aerith and their connection. That's the next book. As soon as I'm done with that one, is going to be, on my to-do list. But it's one of the things. Every game like has its own fandom, like specifically within Final Fantasy. Like for me, as much as I love 7, like 13 for me is one of my absolute favorite. But that's because it hit me like when it came out. It was a really kind of dark time for my life with everything, and it just hit that right chord, right? And I was talking to Nolan North, who plays, Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series at Fan Expo here in Denver, and the same thing. Uncharted. The reason I love Uncharted so much is just where it came into my life and what it did for my life. Just like Final Fantasy VII hit people at a certain point in their life where, like you talked about, it means so much to them because it brought them out of darkness, because of everything. We do actually have, I'm going to Elixile 22. If I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry, but
Alexi
says,
Elixile. Elixile 22.
Elixile.
Thank you for joining.
Been a huge fan of Cait Sith in 2000. Thank you for what you brought to the WeCat. Absolutely brilliant. Question: do you have a favorite line or funny story about any Lions?
Oh, good question. There we go.
Really, really good question.
Good question.
My favorite line, man. I think I'm remembering the first few days. I think we recorded like the lines that were there just at the very, very beginning of when he's introduced, essentially, and they always kind of stuck with me. I think there's a line where it sort of says fortune teller extraordinaire and then put it there and puts his hand out. And apart from anything else, it was one of the lines we would always come back to just to get the recording levels right again. And it was where I'd kind of find the voice again. But there was loads of great instances where, and massive shout out to the translators and the translators of the team, Ryan and Ben and the others, but Ryan and Ben in particular, who were always in a call on Tokyo, because I recorded this all from Glasgow, and so you had Ryan I was recording in Glasgow about 2 p.m. Ryan or Ben were in there in Tokyo about 11 p.m. and the LA studio were up at like 6 a.m.
Just why not?
Dang.
I know,
International.
so, but they had done such a great job at trying to find Scottish, like legit Scottish words and stuff to put into the lines, and to the point that sometimes I would read a line like, where did you get that from? It's like, what?
Sweet. That's cool.
Because they weren't just like cliches. I wasn't just sort of, just being given a load of cliched Scottish lines to do, which I'd be then having to have difficult conversations. I mean, like, guys, can we try and reel this in? So they were really sensitive to wanting to try and get it right. And I think there's one line in particular where he says, where Cait says to somebody, "Is go away, you wee scunner," or something like that. And the word scunner, which is like a nuisance, like my mum or dad would say that to me. It's like, God, you wee scunner. Or if you were being misbehaved, or if you hurt yourself, and it's like, you bastard, you wee scunner. I was like, where the hell did you find that? It's like, how? And they were obviously delated. So
sweet.
There were loads of, a lot of the time we could have a collaborative, we had a very collaborative relationship with it, where we would try a more of a Scottish version, try and find another word, or if it wasn't working, because you've also got to try and fit it into the time frame. You're listening to the Japanese and then trying to find the line into the English, into the same. Don't have too much leeway, but within that, if we could sometimes find Scottish words, or I would throw in a random take and they would say, no, yeah, let's use that one instead.
Sweet.
Yeah, plus a long answer to a short question, but there you go.
Okay, that's all right. So when you look at your career in its entirety, so theater, film, and now with the voiceover in Final Fantasy VII, how much has the theater route helped your career, both on the film and the voiceover side?
I would say a lot, and I don't even know. It's one of these things where I'm probably not even aware of why, but just when you pull it all apart, I don't believe the fundamentals are ever that different, and you're still working, or at least the way I tend to work, I find I still work in the same way. You're still sort of asking the same questions. All kind of comes back down to simple things like what your character's doing, like what does he want at this time, playing a simple intention, and those things transcend regardless of the medium, and are actually really much more useful, or way more useful in something like voiceover acting, when you don't necessarily have all the context and all you have is that line to go on with maybe a reply. So those sort of simple fundamental crafts really come into their own. I mean, I grew up in theatre, but mainly just through the way of doing school shows and stuff like that. That becomes that was my second nature, and TV and film was something I kind of had to sort of learn. I don't think any amount of training can help you for that. The day you stand on set for the first time and just see everything going on around about you, in the same way that when you sit in a booth for the first time and you think, wow, this relationship that I have with this mic, like, it's like, is this okay? He's like, you can okay. But I think, I mean, I enjoyed my time at drama school. It was much more theatre based, but I think it was tended to be, the fundamentals were still there, as I said. However, I find that even when I'm in a voice booth, I'm still quite animated. I have to rein it in sometimes. There was a couple of times accidentally talking about funny stories when I would sort of be doing something and then my hand would fling and I would accidentally like knock the pop shield. You're like, okay, well, we can't use that take. You're like, yeah, okay, I'll chill out back here. But I think there is something helpful in sort of still being, not to get too sort of actory speak about
Mhm.
it, but still being connected to your body, in a way which I think for Cait Sith especially, because he is so animated, and when you watch it, there is something to be able to sort of fling your arms about and feel sort of the character entirely there rather than just here. Which I think is a trap that you can fall into with voiceover acting in particular, where you forget about everything else that's going on because you're so focused on what you think is just coming out of your mouth. So it's definitely been massively fundamental, like my theatre training, and even more so now when people are asking me if I'd been interested in getting into motion capture, which I've never done, but I was told
Oh, that would be so much. I think that would be fun.
I would really, really love to do it, and apparently, lots of people that do it do come from a theatre background, because there's an intuition you have to have with like carrying your whole body to make that work.
Yeah, and the environment, you know, it's not, you don't have a set, you know, you have it is kind of like theater, because you either have a taped border, or you know they tube it up and like give you kind of like a schematic of what you're doing inside the area. It's very interesting. It looks like a lot of fun.
It does, and it's bizarre to think how the way that TV and film and gaming is kind of like found, or the connections between theatre and the technology now, like green screen and the likes of motion capture, the way you have to use your body, the way you have to use your imagination for everything that's not there in the time.
Yeah.
It all comes back to the simple things of, even before drama school, just simple playing. That thing,
Yep.
that
Yeah,
a lot of
how it
actors
came
talk
easier
about,
to
of
you.
just
Yeah.
trying to sort of become a kid again and sort of leave
Yep.
all the judgment at the door when you didn't care that, you know, you were in your own world for hours and hours and hours, and you know, I think that's basically
That's right.
what you spend most of your career trying to get back to.
So when you look at those, if they were to ask you, hey, what's your biggest piece of advice for me as I'm trying to get into either acting or voice acting, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
I would say, and I think it sounds hard, because you can be blocked by your own sense of self doubt or criticism. But I would say, make stuff. Just keep on making stuff. If doing TV and film is what you want to do, find your iPhone, find a small recorder, and just make stuff. Don't try and make your magnum opus right off the bat. Don't try and make this perfect, amazing thing that you think is the thing that's going to get you into a studio. But just keep on making stuff, because it's the best practice you're going to get. And what we have now,
No.
technology is at such a point where we have the relative luxury of creating things for a lot less of a cost than what they used to be. And even training, you don't have to think that something like drama school is the only avenue for you, or that everything is held in this elite pyramid that's just for the chosen few. There is the opportunity there to learn with yourself with relative limited equipment, and you can get a long way. The platforms are there, like the likes of all the social media we have now are the most amazing sort of advertisement platforms you could ever hope for simple storytelling, essentially. But just, I would say, make stuff. Keep on making stuff, keep on creating stuff. If you're wanting to be a writer, just keep on writing stuff. A lot of it's not going to be good. Like, a lot of it's going to be absolute crap. A lot of the stuff you're going to make, you're going to look back in it in 2 years' time and think, oh my god, wow. But you'll have the perspective on that, and that's going to show you that you've actually come a long way. That's probably what's going to forge your life.
I do the same thing with our podcast, right? I look back and I listen to some of our very first episodes, like way back, right? And
Dude,
I'm
our
like,
Skype days when we did
our Skype days, and
Skype,
like,
bro.
God.
and I cringe at sometimes. I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
like
we used our computer cameras,
and-
our computer mics,
And things worked, things didn't work, you know, like I'm not rolling dice anymore at the end of the episode, you know, but it's okay.
You know?
Like, hey,
And-
things evolve. Things
But
get
now
better.
you look at it,
Everyone's
I
looked at
mean-
it through that prism, though. That's the thing. Like, everyone looked at it through the prism of that year, where it wasn't so judgmental. Like,
and like now we're recording today. This is episode 266. like we've been at this for a long time that a lot of podcasts don't survive 100 episodes, you know, and whatnot. And it just, to look back, right? It's just work on it. And like, I think for me, one of the things that I love about this is, yeah, we're not the biggest. We're just a small little independent podcast. Four guys get together, hang out on a Tuesday night, right?
This is
And we
just
have
another
guests and
game
stuff.
night.
But
Just another
another
game
game
night,
night.
man.
my old high school kind of, I went to alumni night last year. And we got to talking and stuff, and they were starting up podcasting curriculum. So they asked me to help teach the podcasting curriculum to the senior class. And that was last year. This year, I'm doing that. Plus, now I help the FBLA students, the Future Business Leaders of America, their chapter at the high school. I help them produce their podcast every week and teach them how
Sweet.
to actually do that stuff. And it's just, it's great to kind of be able to give back too. Now, Jason brought up a game night. Now, the one thing we ask of all of our new guests,
Every guest.
is
Every new
Yes.
guest.
every
Every
guest,
guest.
when they first on the show for the very first time, is when you have the chance to get together with family and friends for a night together, what is your favorite game to play? Whether that's
Yeah.
a board game, card game, whatever. What is your favorite game to play
Favorite?
for game night?
Or your go-to, like the one
Yeah.
that's always comes out.
I think the one that's springing to mind, and I'm sure this has been brought up before, not necessarily with family, but definitely with friends, is Mafia.
Ooh,
Mafia.
nice.
Oh, good one.
Classic.
That's
I like it.
Classic.
Well, there's been a few New Years and stuff where it's just I've had New Years with just a lot of friends around the dinner table, and it doesn't need to be massively immersive. You can just be around a dinner table, but Mafia is one that never ever fails to just to be great.
Do you have it as like the dinner entertainment where everyone starts at the beginning and like, oh yeah, like, or
It's
do you just
more-
play the game? Because like I know some people they incorporate it as like their whole like dinner experience.
Yeah,
like,
and so I've
that
not
thing.
done that, and my wife has done that version where it becomes this whole immersive experience for
Oh,
the entire
sweet.
night, and you're really, really on. I've not done that. I mean, that sounds exhausting. that sounds so tight. That sounds so anxiety-inducing, and I wouldn't listen to really anything that anyone else is trying to tell me because I'd constantly be just in the back of my head thinking, "Are you trying to kill me?" So for me, it's not.
I might have to pick this up. I've never heard of it, but it looks, I'm looking at it right now. It's 20
Oh, yeah.
bucks.
Yeah, it's
It's yeah. I mean, we like because all you need. I mean, there might be other versions of it, but all you need is essentially a set of cards. Really.
Yeah.
Like just you allocate a character, each of your characters to a card, whether you're a mafia or whether you're a civilian or whatever, and that's it. So it doesn't even require sort of someone bringing an elaborate board game, which I do love. I love a good board
you
game.
can easily use like just a deck of cards and have like
Okay, cool.
red be all the civilians and black be all the mafia, and then you just like you try to
Sweet.
figure out what's
Yeah.
going
Okay.
on. It's
That's
very
definitely-
simple,
It's
but
very simple, but very, very intense.
yeah, because you're just trying to go about and be like, yo, you know what, like,
People's true colors can come out on that. I mean, I'm
Oh,
sure,
yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
relationships have lived and died on when a husband or a wife or a partner have just blank face lied to their other half just to sort of kill them. I'm sure there could ropey car journeys home off the back of them. But it is a great, great game. So
There's,
yeah, I think that's probably going to be my answer.
Yeah, there's
awesome.
there's a few games that would ruin a relationship in this household. That's why they don't get played.
That could be one of them. I'm not gonna lie, man. It could be
that might be one of them.
This might be one of them,
man.
bro. Like, you'll hear about it later.
Right.
Maybe it will be.
So with that, it's already top of the hour already. I just looked at the time. We've already been going at it for an hour,
What?
like it is with everybody already. I
And
do.
that's why, like,
I feel like I
there's
talked
never
too
enough
much and
time.
suddenly the hours
There's
go.
yeah.
There were so many questions I wanted to ask you guys.
Go for it.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was curious. Like, I mean, you kind of said it a little bit already, Matt. But your experiences of what your experience of Cait Sith was before going and playing the original. And this isn't like how much did you like the character? Because I'm curious to know why people didn't like the character and what people drew him, what people
I
drawn to him for.
so Jason can answer from the pro side, right? Because
Yeah.
he's pro Cait Sith, right? For me, I just there was just something about the character back then, right? I mean, you got to figure I was just fresh out of high school.
There's
Yeah,
no
I was
apology
18
to
when this
by
game
the
came
way.
out.
Like, I'm just, you know, this...
Oh, I'm sure I'm going to offend a bunch of Cait Sith fans
Hey,
with
you
this.
know what?
But
Nah.
for me, it was just the character, the way he was designed, just didn't hit. It didn't resonate with me. And then, like his abilities in the game, just never hit with me. So I was like, you know what? You're just this character they're making me add to my party that you don't really fit my play style. So you're just going to go sit in the back of the, sit in the back and go chill out and whatnot. But it just didn't resonate with me. Like, I don't know why. It never, it's kind of like one of those things you watch a movie and there's always a character in a movie sometimes that just doesn't, you just don't connect with for whatever reason. Right. And it's just maybe just how they chose the costume design. Right. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay. That for me, I just didn't resonate with me. That was the biggest thing but case in point though, there's games that, like for instance, Final Fantasy 13, as much as I love that game, Hope, I cannot stand him. Like as a character, I can't stand that character, and I wish they could have just done without him, right? And there's the same thing with like FF8 and 9. Like there's always characters that just don't completely resonate with me. But as I've gotten older, I've come to understand what they actually mean to the overall picture, right? So when you're young, it's even nowadays, I can say it about my daughter too, is like it's always about what's in it for me. Like right now in this moment, instantaneous what's in it for me versus seeing it in a bigger picture. I have not done a full run of FF7 in a long time, year wise. So going back to it after I play Rebirth is probably going to be, I'll probably understand the character a lot more going back and replaying it after it being brought to life, right? Jason's on the pro side. I'll let him kind of
I mean,
speak
like
to the pro side.
for us, like for you, you're in high school. For me, I was barely getting middle school. So, just preface that first, Matt. I just want to point that age difference real quick into my mic very closely and loudly.
You act like I don't hear it every day from my wife.
But I'm just saying,
because we're almost 10 years apart.
But again, it's like he was fun to play. Like that's all it is. Like he was not a serious character in my eyes. He was the jokester. He was the one that like tied a lot of things that were just like, you know what? Like there's a lot of seriousness, and then you have the Joker. You have the one that really stands out, and obviously Cait Sith stands out like crazy.
Yeah, I have to agree. The reason why I actually enjoyed him in the story, I didn't use him in my party, but I enjoyed him as a character as well, because I often when my first interpretation of Cait Sith, when I was first playing the first game, I kind of had this Cheshire Cat kind of vibe towards him. Like he was like, because even in Wonderland, like Cheshire got a little serious at moments, and then he was very playful, but his overall like message was to get you through the journey. So I kind of got that from Cait Sith. He was like playful, he was a character, but he moved the story along too. So I just saw him kind of like a Cheshire Cat kind of character, where I just really I enjoyed him. I like the cinemas from the old ones and remake.
And again, you have like this one that honestly just stands out. And again,
that's the thing. He stood out.
This is a pro and con from like obviously back then. The original his limit break was literal randomness, randomness. So I mean, you were never, he wasn't, and I get it from the con side, he wasn't a very reliable source. In that case, it's like, but that's what also made it fun too, because you have the opposite, which I loved, was the possible the end, where literally you just win, literally, and you're just like, and you're like, oh, it's so impossible, and then everyone's like, and you and all your friends are like, oh, dude, have you ever gotten to the end yet? And you're like, trying over and over and over again. Are you doing the
Or
pause the
it's
pause trick, and you're just like,
Yeah.
and you're like, I messed up, and you're just like, okay, you gotta retry it again. But just having that fun aspect of it, in a serious game or just in a long game over time, that alone just
That's an
keep.
interesting point, and I mean, we definitely have a like once we're completely spoiler free, or whenever that may be, it'd be great to have another conversation about this.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
there's a lot more to pull apart. But
Yeah.
that element, I think, not necessarily as a game playing one, because I can understand why that gets frustrating, especially if you're playing it through a place of skill.
Yeah.
And then Cait Sith is just this sort of very, very
Zero skill, all luck.
Yep.
storytelling point of view. I think there is something really interesting there in the chaos of luck, and sort
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
or the element of fate versus just what is going on. And yeah, there's a lot. I think underneath it, like I think his origin story would be really, really fascinating to sort of look back and see all of the mindsets to what brought that character to be, because I think the folklore attached to him, I think, plays a really, really interesting part in the story element of it. Not necessarily the game playing element of it, but the story element of it. I think there's a lot there. But I totally get that if you're playing it through skill and you're like, well, what is
This-
the point?
This, yeah.
See,
and I know
for me,
that's what Matt's talking about.
It was
Like,
all
yo,
the
this
random
character is
crap that would happen to my.
trash.
It's like all the random crap
Yeah.
that would
Yeah,
happen.
it's
It's
like
like
this guy
Because
is
you plan your
trash,
stuff
like-
out. You strategize and you plan
oh
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
I put it
exactly.
in chat, right? My
Yeah.
main three were Cloud, Tifa, and Sid. Like
Yeah.
that was my trio. Like
the powerhouse trio, like it's
they were my
fine,
wrecking crew.
And
And then you go throw Cait Sith in there and goes, oh, I'm gonna do 1 point of damage with a limit break. It's like
yeah, and you're like, oh,
No
really,
way.
really?
But no, Paul,
who rolled the natural one on right now?
Yeah,
Who
right.
rolled the natural
Right.
one? Like,
Natural
oh,
ones.
really?
I just botched my roll. But no, Paul, you talk about, when we can be spoiler free, right? As with all of our past guests, you are welcome back anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah,
this
brother.
couch,
Anytime.
this couch will
Please,
be
bro.
back in LA again.
You know?
Yeah, brother.
We are we constantly have the other guys on, and I think as the guest list grows on who we've had on, I think we need to do a proper show and have everybody on for like a little reunion for you
Oh,
guys.
that'd be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
With you and William and Vic and Austin, Mallory, John, everybody that, it's been a pleasure to bring you guys into the fold. For those people that, crash game night with us today, it's crashing game day, not game night.
Catch a
right
game
now.
day today.
I thank you guys for adjusting to our schedule, because normally we're 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. But when we originally scheduled this, Paul was going to be over in Scotland. So at that point, it would have been like 2 a.m. And I'm not about to make somebody get up at 2 o'clock in the morning for me. That's not my family, But no, if you guys want to check out Paul's guest page, go on over to crashinggamenight.com. Got a little bio up there for him. He's got his links to his socials on there, and where you can find him. If you like what you heard, please drop us a follow here, or find the platform you want to follow us on over on crashinggamenight.com, whether you want to do us on YouTube or audio. Again, guys, as we say always, with everything going on in the world right now, both here stateside and literally over the rest of the world, just quote my favorite Bill and Ted, just be excellent to each other.
That's right, everybody. We just want to send out with the same message out there. And once again, Paul, open invitation, bro. Thank you so much. It was so great getting to know you and hear a lot of your stories, man. And thank you again. And once again, we just want to promote our same message out there. Let's just try. The world's still a crazy place, and let's just try and present a little bit more patience, maybe a little bit of compassion, lend out a helping hand whenever we can. Just try and help. Let's just overall just try to do and be better. And everyone, you be you. If you're a nerd, you be a nerd, because that's exactly what this is about, for you guys to be you and have fun.
You do you, boo.
That's right. Stay safe out there. J-Rock, you take it.
Hey, 3 months in, again, Paul, this couch always welcome all the time.
So
anytime. I might need to get a new couch soon,
It might have been time. We've had that couch for a while.
been
Might
a
be
little
time
bit,
to change.
New couch.
But it's okay. Give us 1 month, because then I know I'll finish Final Fantasy. I know about Jerry.
Take
Jerry,
your
I don't know.
time. Do not rush through this game.
I'm not.
Oh no,
Thank
we
you.
don't
I will
we don't
take my
rush.
time.
We don't rush.
I
We don't
am-
rush.
I am 35 hours in, and I still haven't even gotten to where I meet Cait Sith yet. So
We
just
do
saying.
not rush, but I mean,
not rush.
probably a month in, and we'll be like, good to go.
Nice.
But I don't know. It just depends on Jerry.
At that point, Jerry's going to leave calm. But
Yeah. But anyways, 3 months in, guys, it's been great seeing all these, especially having Paul on to have our honest childhood or our lives relived with Final Fantasy. So many people loving it, living it, just enjoying it right now. And again, not gonna lie, I'm really surprised with the whole community that we really haven't been putting that many spoilers out.
it's been
nice.
fantastic.
It's been really cool.
Yeah,
this time
as
around.
much as
Yeah.
other games have just dominated a whole lot. There isn't as much spoilers, which is it's good for all of us, because like we've said, Matt's chapter 7, Jerry's chapter 1, I'm chapter 0. I still have to install the game, and then I've been slacking as a Final Fantasy
on.
fan. I've been
He's
slacking.
lagging.
Hold on, but we got to give some love to
Sorry.
your wife. The reason you haven't done
Yeah,
it is
you've been
because
waiting
you
for the
wanna play
wife.
it with your
Yeah,
wife.
my wife just
That's
came
fair.
back from a trip, so now we're about to head out to another trip, but it's okay. We're going to get that thing installed. We're going to get going, and we're going to enjoy all the cutscenes, all the cinematics, all the voice acting that you guys
And-
put so many hours in, all the love, because as a fan, and I speak with fans, not for fans, but with fans, that just having that audible and just having that emotion portrayed rather than just reading a text that we did
Yep.
30 years ago,
Yeah.
it adds so much
It's
more.
so appreciated. It really is.
It gives goosebumps all the time.
Mhm.
So again, Paul, this couch is welcome for you anytime. Just hit up Matt, just hit us up,
Yep.
and just be like, yo, we're down.
Yeah.
We can
So
talk
you know.
about Cait Sith.
I feel
We can
honored,
talk Cait Sith. We
absolutely.
can have MJ on, and we can talk all day on
Oh,
mythology too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We love
I've
just
actually
having
MJ and I have been trying to find a time for him to be on. Actually,
Oh,
sweet.
dude, we just love talking to
it's
everybody
just he's got kids
about
and
games.
Yeah.
and family life, and
Oh yeah.
He
So,
would
yeah.
put the same. I imagine he is someone that could be up at 2 a.m. and would do that chat with you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's because of all of our love for games, all of our love for just characters and just
And story, yeah.
stories, and
Yep.
we all have different stories from different times and different places. So it's always great how this community just melds together, and that's why I love it, man. I love it. I will always talk nonstop about people with games.
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
How we started.
Yep, and that's how we started, but this is how we ended. My man, Dilwalski, I miss you. Where are you, bro? I need you back. I got
We do.
Jerry.
He's
back.
working right now.
I know. But I'm gonna give it off to Matt because Jerry always messes it up.
I don't mess it up. I make
You-
it my own because I don't steal
No.
thunder. I make it my own.
No. Matt,
Mess it up. I mess it up.
send it out like Theo does.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Till next time, TTFN. Ta for now.
I make it my own.
All right, everybody.
I'm proud of
You
that.
could have taken Matt's line. Good night, everybody.